It begins on a cold morning in the summer of 1940, inside a bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. Hitler stands over a table covered in maps, arrows, and reports that his generals have spent the entire night preparing. France has collapsed at lightning speed. The Low Countries are gone. The British Army is trapped on the French coast. Europe has never looked more under his control. And for one brief moment, the war is in a position where Hitler could actually win it. He doesn't know it yet, or maybe he refuses to see it, but the decisions he makes in these next few days will determine the fate of the world. This is the day Hitler could have won the conflict, and it's also the day he unknowingly threw that chance away. The German High Command is nervous. They've never seen the map look this clean, this close to total domination. But military men know something Hitler refuses to accept. The British Expeditionary Force, cornered at the beaches of Dunkirk, is vulnerable. If Germany crushes them here, Britain loses its trained army. The backbone of its defence disappears overnight. Without that army, Britain can no longer protect the homeland, no longer project strength, and no longer stand alone against a rising continental power. Taking out 300,000 troops in one stroke would shatter British resistance. Churchill's speeches won't matter if he doesn't have soldiers left to fight with. Hitler walks into the room and every officer straightens. They expect an order, the obvious order, to finish the job. Instead, Hitler does something they don't fully understand. He halts the attack. Tanks are stopped. Armoured divisions are frozen in place. The Luftwaffe is ordered to finish the job from the air, even though the skies are unpredictable and the terrain favours the troops on the ground. Hitler believes the army needs rest. He believes the British will negotiate. He believes this is a moment for diplomacy, not destruction. This is the first crack, a psychological blind spot covered by confidence, a belief that Britain will recognise reality and seek terms. But in London, Churchill is doing the opposite. He is preparing the country for defiance, for resistance, for survival at any cost. He believes Hitler's pause is a gift, and he takes it. Every available ship, from battleships down to fishing boats, is ordered to sail across the Channel in what becomes the largest improvised evacuation in modern history. As German tanks sit idle, British soldiers run towards the sea. Boats pull them out, one after another. Smoke covers the beach. Sand fills the air, but they're getting away. Hitler watches from Berlin, convinced it doesn't matter. He believes an army rescued without equipment is an army useless. He doesn't understand that Britain values men more than machines. Germany can crush equipment in weeks. Replacing trained soldiers takes years. The generals argue, they plead, they warn him this is a mistake. But Hitler's mind is already shifting to a different dream, the invasion of the Soviet Union. In his imagination, the collapse of the East will secure the continent forever. He sees Britain as a side problem. He doesn't see the British resolve. He doesn't see the consequences of letting those troops escape. And he doesn't see the fatal truth. The moment he halts at Dunkirk, he loses his chance to win the conflict cleanly. But this isn't the only day Hitler could have won. Not even close. Because the real decisive moment comes a year later when his troops are deep inside the Soviet Union. The invasion begins like a nightmare for the defenders. German divisions move with terrifying speed. Entire Soviet armies collapse or surrender. Cities fall in days. By autumn of 1941, Germany is closer to winning than at any other point. The Red Army is disorganized. Stalin is in shock. The Soviet government is evacuating eastward, and the road to Moscow is open. If the capital falls, the Soviet Union could collapse. Communications break, rail networks fracture, morale shatters, and the Germans know how fragile this moment is. They push forward. They believe victory is within reach. And then Hitler intervenes again. He changes the plan. Instead of focusing the entire army on Moscow, he diverts huge forces south toward Ukraine and the Caucasus. He wants grain. He wants oil. He wants resources. He wants symbolic victories instead of strategic ones. His generals protest again. They tell him capturing Moscow is the key. They tell him the Soviet Union survives through centralization. They tell him the Red Army can recover if given time. But Hitler refuses. He believes he knows more than the men who trained their entire lives for war. He divides the front. He weakens the momentum. He destroys the one advantage Germany had: time. By the time he returns focus to Moscow, the season has changed. The roads are mud, then ice. The temperature drops so low that fuel freezes inside engines. Soldiers hold rifles so cold their fingers stick to the metal. Wind cuts through uniforms like paper, and yet they keep pushing. They fight through the snow, through the cold, through the exhaustion they get within sight of the capital. They can see the spires. They can see the outskirts. They're so close that advanced units report seeing the faint glow of the city lights at night. This is the moment. The final moment when the conflict could go a different direction. And then another turning point. Siberian reinforcements arrive, fresh, trained for winter, fully equipped. Stalin unleashes them in a counterattack that blindsides the exhausted German troops. It pushes them back, not far, but far enough to end the German advance permanently. The chance is gone, the window closes, and Hitler's dream of capturing Moscow fades forever. But the real psychological moment, the moment he personally loses the war, comes months later during a heated meeting in the Wolf's Lair. His generals propose a strategic withdrawal to create better defensive lines. They argue that the front is too long, supplies too limited, the Soviet Union too vast. They warn that if the army stays stretched, disaster is inevitable. Hitler explodes. Retreat is forbidden. No step backward, not one. He demands his forces hold every inch of ground. He believes willpower can replace logistics. He believes determination can replace fuel. He believes loyalty can replace ammunition. This is the day he stops listening, the day he stops adapting, the day he believes he can bend reality to his will. And from this day forward, the German army becomes trapped in a losing strategy, not because of its ability, but because of one man's refusal to accept reality. There is another moment, quieter but just as fatal, in 1941, when Japan is preparing for its move in the Pacific. Hitler has a choice: pressure Japan to strike the Soviet Union from the east or allow them to turn south toward American interests. If Japan hits the Soviets, Stalin fights on two fronts. Germany gets relief. Moscow becomes vulnerable again. Instead, Hitler does nothing. He lets Japan follow its own path, and that path leads straight to the Pacific, straight to the moment that brings America into the war. Hitler celebrates when Japan strikes American territory. He sees it as a new ally entering the conflict. He doesn't understand the force he has awakened. He doesn't understand the size of American industry. He doesn't understand that once America is involved, time is no longer on his side. By 1942, the final decisive moment arrives at a place called Stalingrad. Germany launches a massive attack on the city. It becomes brutal, chaotic, a grinding urban nightmare. Hitler becomes obsessed with taking it, even though it has limited strategic value. His generals tell him to circle around, to cut supply routes instead, to avoid getting trapped in the city. Hitler refuses. He wants the city that bears Stalin's name. It becomes personal, it becomes symbolic, and it becomes the turning point. The Soviets encircle the city. German troops are trapped. Supplies run out. The winter closes in again, and Hitler gives the same order he always gives: no retreat. The Sixth Army waits for relief that will never come. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and then, after losing hundreds of thousands of men, the German forces are crushed. This is the moment historians point to as the true end. But the war was already unwinnable long before this. The truth is simple. Hitler had multiple moments where he could have won. Dunkirk, Moscow, forcing Japan to hit the Soviets. accepting strategic withdrawal, protecting his supply lines, listening to his generals. At any of these points, the world could be different. He didn't lose because he lacked resources or soldiers. He lost because he lacked the ability to see reality. He lost because he confused confidence with strategy. He lost because he believed he could rewrite the laws of geography, logistics, manpower, and time through sheer force of will. And he lost because he never understood the resolve of the nations he underestimated, especially Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States. There is no single day where victory was certain, but there are many days where victory was possible until Hitler made the choice that closed the door forever.